Reciprocal identities. I want you to write these down. We've talked about them, but I want you to write these down and actually memorize these. We've learned that sine and cosecant are reciprocals of one another. Therefore, sine of theta is equal to 1 divided by cosecant. And cosecant of theta is equal to 1 divided by sine of theta. We know that cosine and secant are reciprocals of one another. Therefore, cosine of theta is 1 divided by secant theta. And secant theta is equal to 1 divided by cosine theta. Tangent theta is 1 divided by cotangent theta. And cotangent theta is 1 divided by tangent theta because tangent and cotangent are reciprocals of one another. Let's look at some quotient identities. Tangent of theta is always equal to sine theta divided by cosine theta. Therefore, if tangent is equal to sine divided by cosine, then the reciprocal of tangent is cotangent, and the reciprocal of sine over cosine is cosine over sine. Therefore, cotangent is equal to cosine divided by sine. So let's use these reciprocal identities and quotient identities to help find the answer to this next problem. Theta is an acute angle. Use identities to find tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. We're given that sine is 8 divided by 17. We're given that cosine is 15 divided by 17. Now, let's remember. Let's look at a triangle, and I'm going to let theta be here. If sine is 8 over 17, this is opposite over hypotenuse. So think about it. If this is theta, opposite side of theta is 8. The hypotenuse is 17. So I'm drawing our triangle for us. If cosine of theta is 15 over 17, that's adjacent over hypotenuse. So here's theta, adjacent side, 15 over the hypotenuse, 17. So therefore, we could simply draw the triangle, use the triangle to help me to find the tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Okay? So if we did that, we know that tangent is opposite over adjacent. So of tangent of theta would be 8 over 15. Now that's one way to do this. But if we use the identities that we just talked about, all of the reciprocal ones here and all of the quotient ones here, if you're given sine and cosine, how do we find tangent? When I look at my problem, I just talked about the quotient identity. Quotient is tangent equals sine divided by cosine. So, I could also find tangent theta by dividing sine of theta by cosine of theta. You were told that sine of theta was 8 over 17. You were told that cosine of theta was 15 over 17. Okay? So here we have a fraction divided by a fraction. What we can do is multiply numerator and denominator by the reciprocal of the denominator. So if I multiply by the reciprocal of this denominator, I would flip 15 over 17, multiplying both numerator and denominator by 17 over 15. That's one way to simplify this. Therefore, we can cross-reduce. The 17s would cross-reduce. The 15s would cross-reduce in the denominator, leaving 1 In the numerator, the 17s would cross reduce, and then I could multiply straight across. I get 8 over 15 divided by 1 just gives me 8 over 15. So therefore, I use the identity that tangent equals sine over cosine to find that tangent is 8 over 15. So that's just showing you that you can use the identities to help you find the tangent. All right, cosecant. We know that cosecant is 1 over sine of theta if we use the identities. So sine, remember sine is 8 over 17, so that's 1 over 8 over 17. Well, if you multiply numerator and denominator by the reciprocal, 17 over 8, the 8's cancel, the 17's cancel, so multiplying straight across, you get 17/8. Now, actually, if you already know that sine is 8 over 17, just flip it, and you get cosecant as well, being 17 over 8. Well, we know that secant is 1 over cosine theta. That's the identity that we know. So that's 1 over cosine is 15 over 17. So multiplying both numerator and denominator by the reciprocal, the 17s would cancel, the 15s would cancel. When you multiply straight across, you get 17 over 15, which is simply the reciprocal of cosine. Going back, cosine was 15 over 17. Secant is 17 over 15. And cotangent of theta. Well, we know that tangent and cotangent are reciprocals. So if tangent is 8 over 15, what is cotangent? 15 over 8. Remember also cotangent could be cosine theta over sine theta. I'm just trying to expose you to a couple of different ways. Remember, we just talked about this identity. Cotangent is cosine over sine. Well, we know that cosine is 15 over 17. We know that sine is 8 over 17. If I multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator, 17 over 8, the 17s will cancel, the 8s will cancel, the 17s will cancel in the numerator, leaving 15 over 8 also. So we use the identities to help me find tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent.